with certain inalienable rights, indivisible. The people's inalienable rights and justice for all. Everyone in America is entitled to equal justice under the law, as inscribed above the main entrance to our Supreme Court. Millions of people daily recite these words when pledging allegiance to the United States of America. So the Supreme Court, and also they mention the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So clearly God is part of our Constitution and part of our Declaration of Independence, part of our foundation as a nation. So is it even possible, Kenny, to remove God from the schools and from this nation?
No, it should not only be possible, it should not even be a thought. I'm surprised it's actually a thought that people think it's going to happen, or that should happen.
And Hal, would you have any information would suggest that even the president thinks it probably shouldn't be part of our national heritage?
Well, I do. In fact, in the Declaration, the President has, on 2 different occasions, changed the words. So the way the Declaration reads is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Obama has said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that each of us are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He has completely removed the Creator, as if he's making up his own statements as to the way it should be. And further, he states in 2006 is, whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
So how do we protect minority views? If we can't establish religion under the First Amendment, how do we protect minority religious views in this country? How?
As I stated, it's if you want a different religion, then, and the president would agree that we want a new religion, then we're actually changing the fundamental values of this nation. And if you want to be a Muslim nation, then we're changing those beliefs. And if you want to have no religion in the United States, then we don't have any fundamental foundation of what is right and wrong. And as you said in Congress, and how they have those words stated about God, is you'd have to take all of that down, and the beliefs of the court system would have to be revised to remove God, or you have to define who God is. And if you're going to define who God is, then is it the Christian God or is it the Muslim God? I would say that this country is founded based upon Christianity, and that is the fundamental beliefs, and that's how we know right from wrong.
Well, since the Supreme Court has been moving towards neutrality and having no mention of God, and no requirement of that, and nothing of that nature in the school textbooks, what would be the harm in just removing all faiths and all religions from the school textbooks?
Well, as I was stating, we have no idea with what's right and what's wrong. Are you saying?
Well, if we removed all aspects of anything religious in the textbooks, what would be the harm of people making their own personal choices? Would there be a harm if people went to school and didn't learn anything about any particular religion? In fact, no religion was taught there, and no mention of God was taught there, and no evidence of a creator was brought up there. What would be the harm in taking a position like that?
Well, if you take a position like that, then you have to remove the Pledge of Allegiance and any information in the schools about reference to state, because state is whether the First Amendment says it's not tied or is, it is tied based upon your statements about Congress and what they believe. So a child would have to go to school, and there would be no Pledge of Allegiance, and they would just have to, they could learn the sciences and English. Certainly evolution, it would not be considered a science if you can't put the facts, so it would just have to be the facts. But I just don't see how you could separate the two.
Would you lose a sense of values that the country has passed on over the years? Would you lose that? Because America has been founded under these documents, a
Here's what I-
Constitution and Declaration of Independence, and a belief in God, clearly. So would you lose that sense of value, Kenny?
Here's what you would lose. You would first lose the amount of people that are staying or becoming Christians in America. So the American Christian population will go down year by year by year. It's already gone down according to Wikipedia in the last 10 years. So if that goes down, then yes, morality goes down, Christian beliefs go down, and it gets to a point where America is going to turn into a country where the value of God, Christianity, or even religion or the Bible is going to become very unpopular. And I'm not sure why the government is deciding to teach this or make this happen. My only belief would be maybe they just don't want America to be a Christian country.
Well, is the teaching of evolution really a teaching of a non-religion, which advances an atheistic or agnostic dogma? Isn't that actually an establishment of an anti-religion when you remove God from the equation?
I think it's an establishment of forcing the people to believe what they believe. If they're not willing to allow Christianity to be taught, but evolution to be taught.
So are we running into the risk of turning this into a godless society?
We certainly are, and based upon Obama's comments, and I'd like to read an article that is hot off the press. So the military blocked access to a Southern Baptist Convention website. The U.S. military has blocked access to the Southern Baptist Convention website on an unknown number of military bases because it contains hostile content. Just weeks after an army briefing labeled evangelical Christians and Roman Catholics as example of religious extremism, Fox News has learned. Southern Baptist chaplains reported that SBC.net had been blocked at the military installations around the nation. The censorship was made public after an Army officer tried to log on to the denomination's website and instead received a warning message. The site you have requested has been blocked by Team CONUS, C-O-N-U-S, due to its hostile content, the message read. Now, I went over to sbc.net and I went to their mission statement. And the mission statement is, as a convention of churches, our missional vision is to present the gospel of Jesus Christ to every person in the world and to make disciples of all nations. Furthermore, it's Christ's likeness. We depend on the transforming power of the Holy Spirit, the Word of God, and prayer to make us more like Jesus Christ. Relationships. We consider others more important than ourselves. Trust. We will tell one another the truth in love and to do what we say we will do.
So what do you think is actually taking place here?
Well, I think slowly the government is actually removing our relationship to God and throughout society.
What would their motivation be for this, in your estimation?
Well, it's uncertain, but I can tell you the danger is we're going to be living in a godless society soon. And certainly, if you're going to remove all affiliations of religions in the nation, then there's really no premise as to what right and what's wrong. If it's just what the government decides what's right and what's wrong, and that's all it's going to come down to. The fundamental belief in Christianity is to love one another and to love God.
Just on that note, in this South Carolina Attorney General opinion in 1998, the question was, can the Ten Commandments be posted in the school without using public funds? And the old rule was no. But the new rule is, according to this opinion, sensibly in recent years, the Supreme Court and other courts have, in a number of cases, generally upheld the rights of religious freedom, and specifically strengthened the exercise thereof in the school setting. Many of the Warren Court decisions, which demanded an impenetrable wall of separation, have now been modified. In religious discrimination has been. The result is that the freedom to espouse religious ideas has been increased and protection from religious discrimination enhanced. Using common sense, the Supreme Court has stressed that the emphasis must be upon government neutrality, not hostility towards religion. As one justice put it, the religious clauses prohibit the government from favoring religion, but they provide no warrant for discriminating against religion. And Justice O'Connor, in concurring, said that, in the words of one commentator, the court has begun to recognize that religion is not a separate entity apart from American society, but one that is part of American society, functioning like other parts and entitled to the same benefits. So even the Supreme Court can see that religion is intertwined with who we are. So although the First Amendment would say there's no establishment of religion, it's definitely intertwined. And now the court has to deal with balancing the interests. So Kenny, what happens to the minority view? What happens to the people that want to exercise a Maoist, not Maoist, but Taoist religion and go to school, and what happens when they go to school and all of a sudden they're taught Christian values in the textbooks? What happens to them and their rights?
I believe if someone's taught Christian values in the school, I think they tend to become more, making more better decisions in life in the future than taking away those values.
But what happens when a parent complains and says, I am a Taoist and I do not believe in Christianity, and my tax dollars are being used to teach my child a religion that is not what I believe in, is not what our family believes in. What do you say to that parent, Hal?
Well, I would say a majority of the Americans believe in Christianity, or so as we were founded. So I would say that if they want to have a Muslim school, then they should have a Muslim private school and send them there. It's very unfortunate that if you want to have a Christian education, that you have to send your child to a Christian school instead of the majority being, which is a public school, being Christian based as this nation was founded. So if a small percentage, I think Kenny has on this paper there, if 0.6% of the United States is Muslim, then maybe you should have a private school for 0.6% of the United States.
So basically you would be saying that because this nation was formed under a Christian value system, that's what we have become as a people. And although we can be tolerant of others, we are not to be expected to eliminate our values from our school system. Is that correct?
That's correct. And one interesting point I'd like to make is that if you want to, my belief is if you're going to take down the Ten Commandments, it's our nation, our government does things that go against the Ten Commandments, one being thou shalt not kill. So if you hang thou shalt not kill in the courtrooms and you don't obey that, and then I could see their motivation to take that off the wall, because you'd have to justify why is the government not following the Ten Commandments.
I think that's a point well taken. And in fact, in reference to that, it appears that we end up with ludicrous results when we attempt to remove God from the school system. For example, in one particular case, a child was supposed to, as a homework assignment, do a poster showing how he could improve the environment. And in his poster, and then that was to be hung on the wall in school. And he and his mother worked on a poster of Jesus. In some way, he thought Jesus would help solve the environmental issues. And when that was put on the wall, it was taken down by the school system, and it ended up in the Supreme Court. So you have ludicrous decisions. You have something as ludicrous as that, a poster in school ending up in the United States Supreme Court. And there are many other instances of that. You have the issue of the statue of Moses in the park in Illinois. And the court now has to supervise all the actions of the school system that was formerly the responsibility of the Board of Education, school boards of education. Do you see problems in that, Hal?
Well, I think that everybody should know their right. In fact, I have the guidelines for religious expression in public schools, and this was on the direction of President Bill Clinton, and then the United States Secretary of Education Richard Riley released a set of guidelines entitled Religious Expression in Public Schools. This is a set of guidelines was sent to every school superintendent in the country, which the purpose of it was ending the confusion regarding religious expression in the public schools. These guidelines were updated in 1996 and again in 1998 and still hold true today. It is important that the administrators, teachers, and parents and students understand their constitutional rights in the matter of prayer in school. Student prayer and religious discussion. Students have the right to engage in individual and group prayer as well as religious discussion throughout the school day, so long as it is not conducted in a disruptive manner or during school activities or instruction. Students may also participate in before or after school events with religious content, but schools officials may not discourage nor encourage participation in such an event. Graduation prayer in bachelorette schools may not mandate or organize prayer at the graduation or organize bachelorette ceremonies. Schools are not permitted to open their facilities to private groups so long as all groups have equal access to those facilities under the same terms. Students' assignments. Students may express their beliefs about religion in homework, art, orally, or in the written form. Religious literature. Students may distribute religious literature to their classmates in the same terms as other groups are allowed to distribute it non-school related literature. Student garb. Students may display religious messages on items of clothing to the same extent that they are permitted to display other comparable messages.
Well, let me ask you this. If the students can engage in these activities, but the teachers can't, doesn't that create a problem, Kenny?
No.
Al?
No, I don't believe so.
Well,
We're going to allow kids to exercise some amount of religious freedom, but the teachers have to be absolutely neutral on every one of these issues.